I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have back with us Matt Gould, the CEO of Unstoppable Domains. Matt, welcome back to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, so much has happened since you last came on the show in the beginning of this year, and I feel like specifically in the digital identity space and sort of incorporating our identities into Web3, a lot of strides have been made in that sector, and it's super important because Web2 identities and your identity on the internet is a mishmash in Web2 and very insecure, and a lot of things that can happen to your digital identity that you might not want to. I know there's a lot of solutions in Web3 coming out to make it easier to log in, to use your digital identity, and I know that Unstoppable Domains also has many other benefits to owning an NFT domain besides that, but I want to touch on all of that. If we could start off our conversation by just a little bit about Unstoppable Domains and what you guys have done throughout this year and the initiatives you're currently working on, then we'll dive into all the details after that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, Unstoppable Domains, we've been in the crypto space since 2017, 2018. So we've been here about 5 years now. And we, from the beginning, thought that in order to make crypto easier for everyone to use, we needed to create a easy to remember UX name, the NFT domain name, to just associate back to all your data, and that includes things like crypto addresses. So we're happy to say that we've registered, we just crossed 2.5 million domains registered here recently. We're actually seeing NFT domains being picked up by all sorts of different people in the space. Coinbase actually recently launched their identity program with NFT domains as well, and a lot of others in the space are getting interested. And domains of the NFT market are one of the few bright spots. If you look around at NFTs from last year, a lot of the speculation has kind of cooled off in the space, and everyone's been impacted by that. But domains, because they really are this utility function to improve UX, to enable you to have a persistent identity across your applications, have continued to see consumer interest, even in this really bad bear market.
Definitely, and I see a lot more value in owning, a web domain rather than a profile picture NFT, because that domain, in the future, could be worth a lot, and also these Web3 domains seem to have a lot more value than Web2 domains because you can do a lot of different things with them. But from what I remember back in the Web2 days when websites first came out, there was a lot of people that were buying up a lot of great domain names, and they're able to live off of those for the rest of their life if they got really good ones. And I'm guessing, out of those 2.5 million that you've sold, there's a lot of great names. all the ones, the common names that you would think of. People buy that up right away, but 2.5 million is almost nothing compared to the amount of websites in Web2 that we have right now. But from what I understand, you guys have been growing exponentially as well, even though it's still early. It continues to grow, right?
Yeah, that's true. And also, one of the big differences between the NFT domains and the regular domain name, because they are different markets. It's a new market, so it's similar, but it rhymes, and they're for end users and to take their identity with them between websites on the internet. So that means that instead of being for like small business, like traditional domains are for small business, they're for you when you're logging in to websites so that you can have your name and your reputation show up there. And that means that it's different types of domains that people are interested in. So we've seen some things like, people want to register their names or maybe their gamer tag. We actually saw people register a lot of numbers. So for whatever reason, people want to have a very short name to be remembered online. So they want to be like 123.x or something. So that's been, so there's a lot of parallels to domaining. It's all about having a thesis on what you think, how people are going to want to identify themselves in the future. But the difference really is it's like people versus businesses. So yeah, it's been super exciting and also interesting to watch. Like people get into this space and try to figure out what calls out to them. But we think that we're actually even earlier than you may suspect, because as opposed to being like 300 million websites on the internet, we're talking 3 to 4 billion individuals who are going to want to have an identifier online. So the market size is 10 to 100x bigger than traditional domain names. So it's a new market, a lot of new things to learn about this, but we think the opportunity is there.
And that's a great point. Not every single person needs a website, but there's a lot of people that have multiple websites, but almost everybody can use a digital identity, which could also double as a website if they want to make one there as well. But for the digital identity part, that's pretty much eventually you'd think as the governments and everything gets on board with digital identity, hopefully we become a universal identity system where you can use your blockchain identity. If you're in Canada or if you're in the US, you're sort of still using that regardless of what country you're in.
Yeah, and we're already seeing this with influencers, right? And like influencers now are the new small business. At least that's one way to think about it. And every influencer wants to make sure they have a good handle on Instagram or on Twitter or on Reddit or something like that. And we're saying to people, you're really going to want to have a good NFT domain in the future to represent your personal brand, no matter where you are. And the cool thing about domain names is not only are they visual, because you can visualize matt.nft or matt.x or matt.crypto, but they're also verbal. Like I can say that over the phone, or over a Zoom call, and you can hear it, right? And it's very hard for a picture to really represent you unless someone is like interacting with you, right then. So it's actually, names are more shareable than pictures. Like we don't use pictures to find websites or something like that. So I actually think that the name that you have for your Web3 name is going to be even more important than your profile picture. And I think a lot of people are catching on to that this year. And again, domain names they can be very boring. NFT domains can be boring. It's just like, it's a name, it's not a cool picture or something like this. But when you think about the utility over the long run, like I can be the same name in every single metaverse I'm in. I can be the same name on Decentraland, that I'm on Uniswap, that I'm on Meta, right? So like I can have that persistent name, and that's really powerful to build brand behind.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, when there's a new social media or a new metaverse that comes out and you have to be on top of it and make sure you get your name right away. If you own your own domain name and you can use that, you already know that you're guaranteed to, be consistent with your digital identity across new systems as they come out and the systems you're currently using.
And this is part of the Web3 promise. And one of the big things about Web3 that people talk about is we want users to own more of their digital information and have more control over their data. And what happens is right now in Web 2 is they control those username systems. And so if they kick you off of Twitter or off of YouTube or wherever, if you can't secure that exact same name on a new platform on like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, it may be hard for people to find you, right? And so what we're trying to say is we think that names is one of the first things that you should own in this new way that the world should work, where you have more control over your digital assets. We think the name is actually one of the first things that we should pull out of the Web 2 model and have that really go in your pocket so that you can control that. Because as long as they can kick you off their platform and they can basically make it very hard for people to find you on whatever new platform you're on because you have to have a different name, that gives the Web 2 platforms even more power. So when I'm thinking about how we iterate towards a world that uses blockchain products to give people more ownership over their digital information, this is one of the steps that I think is critical to happen early on.
That's a great point, Matt. And it's especially noted in the most recent years of people that like to speak their mind on social media. And there actually is that fear of like, you can have your account banned in a second. And all the followers you've built up, you can lose those in a second as well if it's on a platform. You don't really own your own account on YouTube or Facebook, whatever it is. But from what I understand with Unstoppable Domains, you own that, and no social media platform, entity, corporation is going to take that away from you.
Yeah, and that's part of building a brand, is you want to be able to stay consistent over your lifetime when you're building out whatever your personal brand is or your business or what have you. And so we think a name is just one of those first things that you should have. On the flip side of this, and this is another thing that I think people may miss, is that if everyone online has a name that that they control and that they're in charge of making sure that their information is correct about them and they're building that reputation. So if every single individual is atomically creating their own ID, make sure the data is correct about them, and storing information about themselves, so you can see, hey, I've participated in all these Web3 products, or here's my education credentials, or all this other kind of stuff about me. That also enables people to create new communities that are more tailored to their specific interests. And I think that's a big thing too. So it's not just about being able to protect yourself from these platforms taking advantage of you. It's also about being able to create new platforms where they can use this reputation information to create even richer communities online, because people will be bringing their information with them. So it's not, it is a very protective thing to have and own your digital property, but I think it also opens up new markets, which is, I think, even more interesting.
Definitely. And for that to happen, I know that Unstoppable Domains is making tons of partnerships with platforms to sort of start integrating these Web3 identities into them. One of the first use cases I've seen is the login with your Unstoppable domain or your Web3 identity, rather than just log in with your email that you've created on this one specific account, that if you go to another website, you have to create another email account and sort of manage them both separately. This login with Web3 allows you to unify that, but you also need to get the partners on board. How is that going with sort of getting people in Web 2 onboarded into the Web3 identity space?
So I think Unstoppable Domains has probably 20x more partners with login functionality integrated with Unstoppable right now than anybody else. And we think that's huge. And we're going to just continue to push on that. We just crossed 400 partners, and we're moving pretty fast. And we're on our way to thousands. And if you think about it, it's a lot like other identity products in the space. So you may be familiar with Facebook sign-on or Google sign-on, or if you're in the space, you may know Auth0, a couple of these other identity service providers. And you have to put in the hard work of building the tools so that it's easy for those companies to integrate that data. We think that companies are really going to want to talk to crypto consumers at some point, right? And so crypto, there's 100 million plus people who own crypto, but there's only like less than 1 million people who are actively engaging with crypto products every day. But it is growing super fast. I mean, that's up from 10 years ago. And as there are more crypto consumers, as there are more people with NFT domains, as there are more people who are storing information and wanting to share that information with apps, there's going to be more apps that want to integrate. So you get this nice positive feedback loop. And we've already got it kickstarted. So like the cold start is the hard problem. But having a couple million registered domains, having a few hundred apps that accept this, we're going to continue to build on that flywheel over time. And we think it's just going to end up snowballing. At least that's the effort we're putting in.
Yeah, and I'm liking it, because when I see that login with Google, login with Facebook, I'm always very cautious, and I tell people, don't use those, because if your Facebook account gets banned, all those other websites that you logged in through Facebook, you no longer have access to those, and it's just like all of your accounts get deleted at once. I feel like it's exponentially worse than just having your Facebook account banned. And with Web3 logins, it's actually yours, and you hopefully can't get banned with that. So I think that's a huge advantage. And I think it goes both ways. There's a lot of people that are they're crypto native, and they're looking to find ways to protect their identity more, and their personal identity is very dear to them. So they're like, I need more ways to be able to log in with this and not have to use Google. And then there's the people that are just getting into it, which you said is the 99%, and they don't have a Web3 identity yet, but now on their favorite website, they see login with Web3 identity right below Google, and they're like, hey, what's that? And that's actually onboarding them into the Web3 space. I feel like that NFT domains, whether it's one of the ways that people can get into Web3 without having to understand finance and Bitcoin and day trading. They're able to sort of get a wallet with an NFT domain as their first blockchain asset.
Yeah, and this goes back to the utility of NFT domains, and I agree, because we can just focus on very simple things for users. We can focus on, hey, if you use your NFT domain, we can save you time, because it's easier to sign into these places, and you're able to share information with that app, so that you don't have to refill out these forms or whatever, just like a traditional SSO. So we could just say, save time by using a Web3 product. We can also say, have increased privacy by selling a Web3 product, because now, if you don't want that person to have access to your data anymore, because you control that identity, you can just turn it off, right? By going going into your domain name and going into the settings, they're not allowed to see my stuff anymore. And then we can also talk to people about saving them money, because a lot of companies that we're talking with, and this is emerging, are wanting to offer rewards to people who are in the crypto space. But one of their problems with offering rewards is they need to, you have to have some sort of identity. Otherwise, people will abuse the rewards program. And that's we're starting to see the first versions of that. You'll see that before the end of this year. So we can just tell people, look, we'll save you some time, we'll increase your privacy, and we'll help you get rewards for the products that you enjoy already. Notice I didn't mention anything about Bitcoin, or I didn't mention anything about DeFi or complex central banks or any of that. I'm just talking to users about saving them some time, maybe saving them a little bit of money, and increasing their privacy. So it's a completely different narrative that we can get people to use crypto products for in their everyday life. And I also think that it's a much easier space for us to push into with regulators, because we're not touching finance. We get we get a lot more airtime and a lot more leeway to experiment with new products because it's not as sensitive as some of the other things in crypto.
Definitely, and that's a great point. And speaking of regulators, I've talked to a few other decentralized identity platforms, and I feel like this common trend, as you mentioned, we're early, but like later down the road, you really have to be thinking long term about digital identities and how that fits in with the regulators or the government identities, and having your driver's license or having your national ID on the Web3 ID. Like, how do you look at that now, where there's only 2 million people that have blockchain domains, and think we need to build this in a way that hundreds of millions of people will be able to log in with their driver's license and make sure that it's protected, and make sure that the partners can accept that through the blockchain, and they can revoke access and all these other details?
So whenever you're trying a brand new technology and trying to build out a new market, you have to look at what are the things that I can do immediately to help people solve problems. So the first things we're really focused on are some core problems for crypto dApps, because that's where the users are right now. So just a very simple one, and it's actually pretty easy, is let's say you use a lot of DeFi products and there's a hack on one of those. They don't really have a way to send you a message. So we have a thing with, if you logged in with Unstoppable with your NFT domain, then you could actually share a private email address. They actually don't even get your email address. They just get a private place. So they could actually send you something and say, hey, we had a hack. You need to come and check on your stuff. So like that's an example of something that is very simple and just something that doesn't exist in dApps. And then if we want to get a little more complex, we can talk about DeFi regulation and say, okay, you're a DeFi app like Uniswap, you want to stay legally compliant in the US for trading of these products or whatever. We can attach KYC information back to an NFT domain. So we did humanity check for that as the first one. So we think those are going to be kind of some of the first products. When we're trying to think like really, really long term where we want to go, we think we have to iterate and just trying little small steps on the way to get there. And this is actually something that emerges. So you build up your identity over time by adding more and more types of data to your domain name, and you just solve the problems one at a time. So there's no silver bullet. We can't just say like, here's the standard, everybody use it. You have to like build each little standard for each little app.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, and we are very far away. And I think the KYC, with crypto users that are already familiar with Web3, that is a great use case for their personal identity is required for some investments of large amounts. How do we put that on the blockchain and not the insecure way of, in 2017, none of this was really digitized. You're sending your passport or your national identities over an unencrypted picture file or a text file, and that's not really, you're in Web3. There should be some more secure way to go about giving your personal information to some entity that you may or may not trust.
And there's a lot of great companies working on exactly that problem. And the cool thing about NFT domains is we look forward to working with those companies. Like I know, for instance, Polygon has like a zero knowledge KYC product that they have been developing, and that's the type of thing that you can actually plug into your NFT domain as just another type of verification on top. And so your NFT domain is just the base layer, and then you have these other verifications that you can add onto it to extend that functionality and make your life easier online. So we are trying to support as many of those as we can. And it's going to be one of those things where it's going to build slowly and slowly and slowly, until all of a sudden you're like, wow, this thing is everywhere, because we're in the background just solving one problem after another. And then after you solve enough of those problems, it crosses that threshold of utility, and then you see rapid adoption. And we've seen that That's just how it works. And I think that, any time in the next 3 to 5 years, we could really see these NFT domains take off as identities.
Yeah, it's incredible to think, all the people that are getting involved in it now, and sort of, there's still so many different domains, and, most people's full name is probably still available, and it's probably, very easy to get. So people should definitely get interested in it right now, rather than, when it's already too late, and you can't sort of snag your name, or your company name, or, some other cool nickname that you want for your gamer tag. When the metaverse becomes more predominant, I feel like that's going to be, it's your username, it's your identity, and it's everything.
For sure. And I definitely think, I look forward to seeing you in the metaverse, ashton.nft, and then you can hopefully find me, matt.crypto. And that'll also make it easier to just bring in all sorts of information to those apps too, and improve those experiences.
Definitely. And it's not just like, in the traditional, like just .com or .net. From what I understand, you guys have lots of different top-level domain names.
We do. We currently offer 9 top-level domain names. We're actually adding support for several other NFT domain services out there as well. And this is a fast expanding market, and there's a lot of interesting things that are happening with NFT domains. I tell people, you should definitely go pick one up. We actually have a couple partners that we work with, like blockchain.com, for instance, and where you can even get your first domain for free as part of their .blockchain extension with them. And for as little as $5 to start and check it out and start playing around with the technology. Use your app and play around with your identity on the internet. Actually sign into crypto apps online with your domain name. See that show up as your identity on those apps. I think it's a great place to learn and explore. There's a new narrative in crypto every couple years, right? We had the DeFi narrative, we had NFTs last year. I think that identity is one of those narratives that's sitting in crypto right now that has a chance to be a breakout narrative and actually bring in a lot more people as we continue to find more ways to bring utility to end consumers for these Web3 products.
That's incredible. And for the people that want to learn more about what else they can do with Web3 identity and NFT domains, and how they can take advantage of it and be early, what's the best way for them to learn more on this?
Well, I would say go to our website, unstoppabledomains.com. And we also have a podcast as well that I think you should check out, where we talk about these things. And you can find us in Discord as well as Telegram. We have great community events. We even have some events where you can have what do we call these? Like, we send you on little hunt and search things online for you to go check out, like how to use your identity across these different kinds of applications. We have a great learning and development team for education on those products as well. And we would love to have you in the UD fam to come and learn about NFT domains and how we think they're going to change digital reputation on the internet.
Incredible, Matt. Thank you so much for all the great information. I'll leave the Unstoppable Domains website and the socials links you mentioned in the description box below as well. All the best with everything in NFT domains and Web3 identities. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the metaverse with my Unstoppable Domain NFT. And I'm going to check out all these other ways that Unstoppable Domains is adding value to Web3 identities, because I think the world's changing very quickly, and it's good to stay on top of stuff exactly like this. So thank you so much for your insights, Matt.
Thank you, Ashton.